This is Support is Sexy, episode 232, with Wynn Charles, host of Butterflies of Wisdom podcast and advocate for people living with cerebral palsy. Welcome to Support is Sexy. I'm your host, Elayne Fluker, entrepreneur, author, and founder of Chic Rebellion Media. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, I interview inspiring women entrepreneurs who share their wins and their lessons to help you take your business and your life to the next level and create something sexy. Here we go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Support is Sexy. I'm so excited to have you here because it just would not be the same without you. And I'm excited today to introduce you to Wynn Charles. And Wynn and I met actually on Twitter. Yes, that's how we got in touch, on Twitter, sharing each other's content, admiring each other's content. I've actually recently been a guest on Wynn's show. She has a podcast called Butterflies of Wisdom. Wynn is an athlete, an author. She loves snowboarding, and she's a triathlete, actually. One of the things, though, that I love about what Wynn is doing is that she is a person living with cerebral palsy, and she uses her voice and her platform to advocate for people living with cerebral palsy, to help us understand more about people living with cerebral palsy and disabilities in general, and creating a space for people to share their stories, which you know I'm all about people sharing their stories. Wynn is also the author of the book I Win, My Journey with Cerebral Palsy in a Non-Disabled World. So in this episode, you're going to hear about Wynn, about her journey and all the things that she's doing now. And also in this episode, what you'll learn is what people misunderstand about individuals living with cerebral palsy, ways to turn grief into action, the importance of having an advocate, why Wynn says it's crucial for people with disabilities to share their stories, and why it's important for content creators to listen to their audience's wants and needs. So this is an inspiring episode. I know you're going to get a lot out of it. Be sure to go to supportissexypodcast.com and just search Wynn, W-I-N, in the search box, and her show notes page will pop up with the resources and all of the things she mentioned here, in addition to ways to buy her book. And you'll hear in here why it's important for us to support her, buy her book, the goal that she has attached to her book, and the great things that she has planned for the future. All right, so now without further ado, Wynn Charles. So Wynn, thank you so much for joining me for an episode of Support is Sexy. I'm excited to talk to you.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you, and I think we should call this episode CP is Sexy. My God.
That's
because
right.
What we're going to talk about is not only business stuff, but how you and I met and my story, and try and give a little inspiration.
That's right. So the first question, when did you first fall in love with entrepreneurship?
Believe it or not, I first fell in love with entrepreneurship when I was in 8th grade. And then I fell in love with it again in 2006. And I'll get back to why I fell in love with it again in 2006. But believe it or not, I was fortunate enough to go to Washington, D.C. and see a story at NPR, National Public Radio, actually happening. And when I saw those big podcasting mics at the time, I'm like, I need to do that somehow. Mm-hmm. So I got the bug in my head that I needed to do this, what I'm doing now, in 8th grade. And that's a story I don't necessarily tell people.
So when you went to NPR, it was on a school field trip or something like that?
Yes, it was on a school field trip. I actually went to a private school in Colorado, where I'm still based, Aspen Country A. And one of the things they do is take the 8th grade class of that graduating year to Washington, D.C., and they see all the monuments and do all that fun stuff in Washington, D.C. Well, my year, I got to go to NPR. As I said, I also had the privilege and opportunity to meet Hillary Clinton. And so, yeah, that was a fun one. But getting back to the NPR thing, I thought, okay, if I could do that someday, I would be the happiest camper on the planet. So, yeah, long story short, I'm now going back to journalism school in the fall and now getting the appropriate training to do this potentially full time.
That's excellent. So at that time, I know it was just the 8th grade, but did you think, I know you said you wanted to do that, but did you start then thinking about how does someone do that? Becoming curious about that?
No, but looking back on it, I wish I did. Looking back on it, I wish I followed my 8th grade passion then instead of waiting until I was 23 and then following my 8th grade passion.
What did you follow instead at first?
I followed the route of education, which I'm still at, which education is great, but when you've been doing it for 11 years, it gets on your nerves, especially when you teach preschool.
And you're still in Aspen, right?
I am.
Okay.
I am actually now working at the school that I went to as a student, so I could do those lesson plans in my sleep, practically. But when you think about how educational technology and how teaching preschool has changed since I went to school, it's a whole different kettle of fish.
Now, what would you say a young Win was like growing up in Aspen, Colorado?
Oh, a young Win used to scare people used to scare adults when I would turn around at age 6 and say, "Hi, how are you?" The adults would look at me like I was nuts because of my cerebral palsy, which is lack of oxygen at birth. I still to this day require help. So now I'm using the gift of the gab to help others in the process of dealing with their own disabilities and mental, physical, emotional, you name it, I practically deal with it.
Why do you think those adults were frightened when you were able to turn around and speak and have conversations and all of those things?
Well, one, it was, they weren't expecting that out of a 6-year-old. 2, a lot of people judge the book by its cover. So they would see me walk into a room with a secret gate and automatically assume that I can't speak. Now, granted, I know people with severe cerebral palsy who can't speak. I know people with heavy speech impediments. So each case of cerebral palsy manifests itself differently.
What do you think that, speaking about that, what do you think that people most misunderstand about people with cerebral palsy?
That we have brains that are sharp as tacks, and yeah.
They don't realize that you have brains as sharp as tacks.
Nope. Nope. And the statistics stand that 764,000 babies and kids have cerebral palsy in the U.S.
Wow. I didn't know the number was that high.
Yes, the numbers, and I just Googled that number the other day, and it scared me. It scared me that the number has gotten higher since 87 when I was born.
So what made it important for you then to use your voice as you are now? We know that was part of, you were attracted to that idea when you were in the 8th grade, but what has made it important for you now to go ahead and pursue getting your voice out there in so many different ways, but mainly through media?
Well, I had to stop and smell the roses moment when I was 23 years old. Also, when I was 19 and a half, I lost my capability to walk. When I was 18 and a half, almost 19, I had a scoliosis surgery that went horribly wrong. And then at the age of 23, I lost my biological mom to meningitis / a brain aneurysm. She went into the hospital with a brain aneurysm. The surgery that she had saved the brain aneurysm. They were able to take care of the brain aneurysm, but she ended up dying of meningitis given to her while in the hospital.
How did you deal with that time in your life when losing your mom, who I know just from what I've read about you that you were very close to?
Yeah. Basically, how did I deal with that? Well, basically, for anyone who's ever been through grief, they know grief, just like cerebral palsy, manifests itself in different ways. But one of the things it did for me is left me with a huge mission, which I'm now on, thank you very much, to spread awareness about cerebral palsy because it's really fear is the unknown. And I think my days blended into one, and I still live with my dad. And so it's gotten easier 6 years into it, but grief is going to hit me, and grief is something I have to be aware of, and also how my CP manifests through grief is something I have to be aware of.
In what ways does it manifest through grief? The CP manifests through grief?
Part of CP is the muscle contractures, which they call tone. And when I'm going through grief on particular days, my tone is off the wall. Also, when I'm going through a lot of stress, my tone is off the wall. So if you Google CP and tone, you'll see what I'm talking about when I say muscle contractures.
One of the things, well, first of all, thank you for sharing that with us about, what it's like to go through that time, which is tough for everyone to lose a parent.
Yeah.
Your mom, especially who I know you were close to. And one of the things that I've read that you said was that your mom taught you the value of listening to your own voice when making life choices. So I wanted to ask you, how has this advice from your mom supported you when facing challenges, especially?
Well, quite frankly, I don't remember saying that. But when I admit that now, that I don't remember saying that, and I win, I really don't remember writing the stuff I said, and I win that's now coming back up. I think I wrote I win in a haze because I was still dealing with grief at the time. And so I think, well, she and my dad raised me as if I had no disability. And so I never knew my disabilities full extent until I was in high school, and I opened up a laptop, Googled at the time what I knew CP, the call letters for cerebral palsy, and I Googled it. I almost closed the laptop and put my head in my hands and almost cried because those statistics scared me in 2002, and And it's like, yeah, we're dealing with a huge monster here that no one can control. I mean, as much research as they do on it, they don't do enough awareness. And people are saying to me that they want a cure for cerebral palsy, which won't come quick enough.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you say, for you, when you say your parents, when you say your parents raised you without, I guess, addressing or letting you know that you had a disability, or as if you didn't have one, is what you said. How do you think that?
If I didn't have one.
Yeah. How do you think that helps strengthen who you are as a person today? Because you do, which we're going to talk about, so many incredible things for any person today.
Well, thank you for saying that. And I think that shaped me into the incredible person I am today, because I didn't have the Americans with Disabilities Act. The Americans with Disabilities Act was still in draft form in 91. So when I first ventured into a private preschool, I was very lucky to have those educators who were trained, believe it or not, in special ed before they even met me. So I think nowadays when you see a kid with cerebral palsy, the education system doesn't know what to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so they send them off to the corner of, oh, God forbid they send them off to a separate segregated classroom, and God forbid they give them the untrained aid. I, on the other hand, was integrated into a normal classroom setting with able-bodied kids.
And was that because your parents advocated for that?
Yes, and that was because the Americans with Disabilities Act was still in draft form.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we talked earlier about just your writing and your books and the autobiography, I Win, My Journey with Cerebral Palsy in a Non-Disabled World, which you wrote in 2012, or which was released in 2012. You probably wrote it before then.
Yes.
Why did you feel overall that it was important for you to share your story at that time? I know you say you wrote it in a bit of a haze because it was after your mom passed, but why was it important for you to get the story out?
Because I was sick of having people treat me as if I was dumb and didn't have a brain and didn't have light bulbs on inside.
Do you feel like it has helped sort of shift that perception of people with cerebral palsy, or at least the people that you meet and encounter?
All of it. To answer your question, all of it. Because I feel like people are so fascinated by these first-hand accounts of people with disabilities that because people are trying to educate themselves, well, how are we going to educate the next generation if we give them iPads and cell phones?
Mm-hmm. One of the other things that I know you do too is you're a public speaker and you talk about cerebral palsy, life with disability, and that kind of thing. Is that part of your overall education of people?
That's part of my overall education of people.
Mm-hmm. One of the things I also found fascinating, which we talked about a little bit before the interview started, is that you're a triathlete, right?
I was.
You were. That's amazing.
I was. And which that ended up not being so nice on the body.
But that's hard on anyone, right? That you were in the Kona.
That's hard on anyone.
Yeah.
So I'm laughing because it's hard on anyone's body and it's hard on anyone's psyche too. So I decided to go back to my normal life, well, somewhat normal life, and decide to only stick to marathons if it came to it, and to stick to snowboarding, quite frankly, if it came down to it.
You did to snowboarding, you said?
Yes.
Okay. Now, did you participate, though, in the Kona Ironman triathlon?
We did. And the reason why I say we is if your listeners Google Team Hoyt, you will understand how we did it. How I did it is I got, and how most disabled triathletes did it, is I got pulled in a yellow boat and I got pushed in a wheelchair and hooked up to the back of my cousin's bike, who happened to be the able-bodied teammate that orchestrated all this. And there are organizations out there that help the disabled. One of them is Ainsley's Angels. Ainsley's Angels is all over the U.S. In fact, if you go back to my feed, Butterflies of Wisdom, which is my podcast, you will hear Ainsley's father share the story of Ainsley and why he started Ainsley's Angels. Another one is Walk with KPZ, and Walk with KP is out of Atlanta, which I know you are from.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know when you were down there if you ever heard of Walk with KP.
No.
Walk with KP is actually, I was thinking about this when you asked me this question. Walk with KP is actually another non-profit that I've been involved with because of my triathlete status. And so if you guys want to Google those two, you can put that in the show notes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Then
I'll make
people
sure.
can
Sorry to interrupt you. I'll say
out more information.
Yeah, I'll make sure I have links to both of them. I may email you after this just to make sure I got the names correct. But that's great to know for people listening.
Yeah.
But
and they're always looking for volunteers. I know they are, to help Ainsley's Angels, especially. Ainsley's Angels is always looking for volunteer runners to help push these kids in and adults in racing wheelchairs and be a support.
one of the things you also just mentioned is your podcast, Butterflies of Wisdom, which I love.
Yes.
Yeah, which I'm going to be on next Friday, right?
Yes.
We're doing our interview.
Yes, we're doing the interview.
What would you say is your vision for the podcast, which I know you post twice a week, Mondays and Wednesdays?
Mondays and Wednesdays, correct. I do post Mondays and Wednesdays, and there's a reasoning behind that. Mondays, okay, you're going to work, you 9 times out of 10 have the podcast in your earballs, and then Wednesdays, you're thinking, okay, how can I get through this work week? Let's see what Butterflies of Wisdom has to offer. Any podcast, quite frankly, support is sexy, also goes on to Wednesdays. So the reason why I do it at the beginning of the week, in the middle of the week, is just to help people out and give people a little bit of support and a little bit of a boost.
Are you enjoying podcasting?
Am I enjoying podcasting? Yes, I am. But the dang show notes are not my strong point.
I know.
Nor
It's
is
not
the editing.
fun. It's not
so
fun.
it's the dang show notes and the editing is not my strong point. So that's why I try to leave it natural.
Right. It's not, I mean, like you said, it's not your strong point, but I think for most of us, it's not necessarily fun. I won't say for most of us. I don't know. Maybe some people love doing that. But for me, it's not always fun. The
Listening
podcast.
to them self-speak, I don't think so.
Yeah. So how do you handle it when, you know, you're doing so much, you have all of these things going on, your podcast, and, you know, you're competing, even if not in the triathlon, but you still are an athlete and writing your books and all these other things that you're doing. How do you stay motivated during the times when people either underestimate you, as we talked about earlier, or just in general? What keeps you motivated?
Well, the podcast keeps me motivated because I am a lifelong learner. I'm just going back to school to say now that I will have the professional training so that people believe in me more and more. But since about 2012, when the book came out, I started doing this podcasting. It actually started as a YouTube show, and then I'm not kidding. When a fan goes, "Well, I want to listen to your podcast," at the time it was a YouTube TV show, and she goes, "I can't download the audio and multitask. I have to sit down in front of a computer and actually watch it." And I'm like, "Oh, great." There goes my YouTube. There goes my YouTube, because I was adapting to my fan base at the time. And so I bit the bullet. I got a podcast host, which is Lipson,
Right.
Lybsyn, and they've been wonderful. And so they accept every podcaster on the planet. So I have been doing this since 2004, but I didn't really create a podcast until that fan said that, because I was going to stick with YouTube.
That's so. Do you think you give that advice to other entrepreneurs, or even especially content creators, to sort of look at where your fans are, or your listeners are?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. I do. When a fan goes, "I need this," even if it's you screwed up, you have to adapt to what they are telling you. I remember I screwed up on someone's name, and they came back and told me many, many months later. And so now I don't even touch the bios at the beginning of the interviews. I let the guest take it away.
That's smart. I see. So are you glad, though, that you got into doing podcasts when you did, sort of before it became this rush for everyone to do them? Not everyone, but lots of people.
Yes. I'm glad that I got in when I did. Now, granted, I wish I got in sooner, but I'm glad I did when I did.
Fantastic. Now, I know you also have a jewelry company. Do you still have your jewelry business?
I started entrepreneurship as a self-taught digital artist, and I have given that up for public speaking and writing books. My art is still floating around online. I mean, if you type in my name on and put the word art after it, or just go to fineartamerica.com and look for my name, my art is still floating around, and I can still do it. But I have given that up for writing books and public speaking.
That's good. You're focused. That's what they say, focused on the one thing. The speaking and writing, getting your message out there is your one thing. I love it. So what would you say when your support network looks like?
Well, my support network is definitely, it's definitely my dad. It's definitely my age in the process of me functioning on a daily basis, but it's more and more the people that I get to interview every single day on the podcast, and get interviewed like rock stars like you, and get to interview you and get to share my story and raise awareness for cerebral palsy.
When you think about your overall vision for the work that you're doing now with writing and speaking and all of that, what do you want your ultimate goal to be, sort of your vision statement? What do you want to either create or change in this world?
Well, I would like to be, and my fan base knows this by now, so I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself to my new fan base, yes, and I would like to be the first New York Times bestselling author who is self-published with a physical disability.
Nice. That's very specific. I like that. I'm going to
Yep.
put some energy into that happening for you.
Yep. That would help me out so much. And we actually have a campaign going on right now because, as I said, I'm going back to the Academy of Arts University based out of San Francisco in the fall to take classes online in journalism, fashion journalism to be exact. And we have a campaign going on right now because even though I'm covered financially, my cost of my books, and you guys know this by now if you're sending a kid to college or even if you're going back to college yourself, you know how costly a textbook could be.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have a campaign going on, which actually a fan came up with for me. I didn't even come up with this campaign. And so if you buy any of my books, that will go back to me and supporting my college textbooks.
Very nice. So if people buy your books, and I'll have links to all of your books, buy your books
on Amazon.
Okay.
Amazon, that goes directly into my bank account, and then that will go towards my college textbooks.
All right. Excellent. So we have a way to help support you with the book becoming #1. That'll help with sales and support you with school.
Yes.
I love it.
And
support is sexy.
Support is sexy, basically. And then, and so we have come up with that campaign, and then I'm slowly but surely working on the accompaniment to I Come a Win, and that should be coming out in late August.
Fantastic. So in closing, Win, if you think over your life and career and you had the chance to thank only one person whose support was critical to you personally or professionally, who would that be and what would you say?
Oh, goodness. I knew this question was coming because when I listened to your podcast, and I did listen to it this morning, and
Thank
so my person would have to be my mom, who passed away of meningitis August 12th, 2010. And she, as I said, raised me as if I had no disability. And my second person would be my dad. It would equal out between my dad and my soon-to-be stepmom, who's taking me on like there's no tomorrow. I must be doing something right if I'm educating even my stepmom about physical disabilities and her daughter. And her daughter is someone that I look up to because right now we're going through the same process together of being college students and basically on the same track. She's on the track of communications, but I'm on the track of journalism. So even though you said one, I think I have to list those 3 people in my life.
That's okay. It's totally acceptable. You make your own rules, Win.
Yes, exactly.
So tell us now how we can support you. I'll have links, as I said, to your books, and you told us about that. But what about your website, social media, or anything else you want us to look out
for? I am very active on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Win, W-I-N, Kelly, K-E-L-L-Y, Charles, C-H-A-R-L-E-S, all one word. Yes, my name. And, of course, it's the @ which I gave you. And so people can come and find me on that. And when the podcast goes out, when this podcast goes out, I'll be retweeting this podcast from Support is Sexy. And then when my podcast comes out on Mondays and Wednesdays, it automatically goes on my Twitter. So if we can spread awareness about cerebral palsy through Twitter, that would help the cerebral palsy community so much so.
Excellent. Wynn, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you, and I appreciate your message and you being a voice for people with cerebral palsy and really showing how we can continue to understand it better. And the fact that, I love what you said about you're living your life. You don't want to be underestimated. There are so many things that people just don't understand. So I appreciate you being a voice to help us all understand more.
Well, thank you for saying that. And yes, I'm looking forward to calling my podcast for the first time, which I think she stole my name. CP is sexy. And I'll be teasing my fans with that. And they'll go, what is now going on? We're going to have fun with this. And if you guys want to be on my podcast, all you have to do is reach out to me and I'll get you the information via DMs on Twitter. I typically ask for email addresses, so if you can just put your email addresses in the tweet, that would be great, and then my assistant will get you on the schedule. My assistant also has CP. She's also a published author, so if you guys want to go check out Danielle Coulter on Amazon, she would greatly appreciate that too.
Fantastic. Great. Wynn, thank you so much again. And before you go, what's a parting piece of advice from you to our listeners about anything?
Oh, I'll use my girlfriend's quote. She goes, if you can dream it, you can live it.
That's right. If you can dream it, you can live it. Wynn Charles, thank you so much. Hold on just a minute. All right, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Wynn Charles. I really love what she's doing. Remember, you can go to supportissexypodcast.com. Just search Wynn, W-I-N, in the search box, and her show notes page will pop up with all of the resources and everything she mentioned there within the episode. Supportissexypodcast.com and search Wynn. Also, I just want to thank you all again for leaving reviews for the podcast on iTunes for Support is Sexy. I appreciate it. It really helps the show. It's not only for me, it really does help the show. And I also appreciate you subscribing to the podcast. So if you haven't already, wherever you're listening, make sure you subscribe if you love it, only if you love it. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. Subscribing, leaving a review, sending me emails, getting in touch with us on social media at Elayne Fluker or at Support is Sexy. It's all fantastic. I really appreciate it and I don't take it for granted. So I just wanted to say thank you so much. I appreciate you being here. All right. So now if you're listening to this in real time, have a fantastic weekend and I will talk to you next week. And until then, you know what to do. Go out there and create something sexy. No excuses. And I'll talk to you soon. Take care.